Hello everybody, Scotia here with the speculation video today because, as some of you are probably already aware, we're getting close to the release date of the KOFXV 15. We're only a couple of months away, which means we're also getting close to finding out the final characters that are going to make it into the base roster of the game, which is pretty exciting. It's always interesting seeing who's going to make it, who's not making it. And we're only about 6 characters away, technically 7, but we know who one of them's going to be. So, and there's a lot of speculation right now in the community, on Reddit, on Twitter, quite a lot of places online about who's going to be the final 6 characters for the KOFXV 15. And everybody has their theories, but there's kind of there's a popular selection of characters that some people think are going to make it, and I agree with that list. And it's me basically going to just be making a video about these characters and the reasons why I personally think they're going to make it. Of course, you never know, things could completely go in a different direction. It's one of the beauties of these things, you know, you never really know where things are going to go. So yeah, this is the video. It's just going to be me basically going through each character, why I think they're going to make it, maybe going into some characters that I don't think are going to make it, that people also think might make it. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm going to start with the team that I think is going to be revealed next, and that is the rival team. And we know this is going to be the rival team because you can see on the character select screen that Isla is the team leader. And if you've not caught up with the game, if you've not seen the recent trailers, you won't know that Isla is pretty much, she's the new rival of this arc. She's the rival of Shune. So she's a pretty important character, and we know she's leading her own team. And for this team, I feel like it's going to consist of Isla, Dolores, who was the last mystery woman, whose name we pretty much know now because it was on the same leak from the website that Isla's name came from. We knew Isla's name before she was officially revealed because of that website, and the same website also listed the name Dolores, so we can assume that this mystery woman is named Dolores. So I think it's going to be them two, and I think it's the third member is going to be Kukri. And with Kukri, it was interesting because for a long time now I've thought Kukri was going to team up with Ash because of the official invitation team ending in KOF 14. And I think a lot of people thought that because it just made sense. Now that we've seen more 15, we've seen, you know, some story footage, we've seen Dolores. Now I think that Kukri is going to be with her and Isla. And the main reason I think this is because when you look at the footage and you look at Kukri and you look at Dolores, they both share the same little symbol, the same emblem on their clothing, and it's a pretty distinct emblem. And I mean, people caught on it right away, which is probably the intention. So these two are obviously linked. Personally, my theory is that these two are going to be part of the new villain faction for this saga, because obviously KOF 14 didn't really introduce any villains, we just had Verse. But I think there's enough reason to think that Kukri is involved in something. He knows more than he's letting on. If you look at his character intros from KOF 14, especially his interactions with Shune, you can tell he knows more than he's letting on. Of course, Kukri could always end up on the Ash team like originally thought. I personally don't see it. I don't really see what he has in common with those characters other than, you know, he was hired by Elizabeth to find Ash at the end of 14. That's kind of it, which, you know, is good enough, I suppose. But personally, I feel like there's more linking him to Dolores. And obviously, Dolores is pretty likely to be working with Isla because in the story trailer, there's a moment where Isla says she's calling the shots. She says this to Dolores. So I think it's likely that that's how it's going to end up. So yeah, pretty simple stuff really. That's how I think that team's going to go. I personally think the next character reveal is going to be Dolores because she's the only character we actually know of yet. Once she's out of the way, the last 6 characters are completely unknown, which are the ones I'll get to in a minute. So yeah, that's my bet for the rival team. Isla, Dolores, Kukri. So now we move on to the K-Dash team, and to be honest, I don't really expect anything too major with this team. It's a pretty consistent team, has been for a while. We obviously know K-Dash has his own team. He's had his own team for quite a few games now. As for who's going to be in the team, I think Cooler is a pretty safe lock. She's a pretty popular character. Hasn't missed a game except for I think 2003 and 12. So yeah, I expect her to be there. She's, you know, no reason for her not to be. As for the other member, I think it's either going to be the safe choice is Maxima because he's a pretty consistent character as well. He's always been with K-Dash. They're pretty closely linked to each other. He's never missed a game outside of 12, which to be honest shouldn't really count. Yeah, he's just a pretty safe character, you know. It'd be one of those things where I would be surprised if he didn't show up because he's always kind of just been there. For the not so safe pick, I would probably go with Angel, and the only reason I'm even really suggesting Angel is because of a somewhat less than reliable leak from the same KOF website that leaked Isla and Dolores' names. This was a different source though. I believe this one came from a Chinese version of the KOF website where it mentioned Cooler and Angel. They were mentioned in the character interviews before it got swiftly taken down. Yeah, so obviously Cooler's Cooler. She's going to be with K-Dash because she's always been with K-Dash. Angel could be with somebody else, but the only real team I think makes sense would be with K-Dash. And the only thing that really stops that, the only thing that kind of like makes me hesitant on that is the fact that it's been pretty well documented in the past that Angel and Cooler do not like each other. In fact, they pretty much hate each other, as said in KOF 14. And it's like, you know, would they really team up with each other? And I personally don't think it's that big of a deal. Some people have kind of like completely thrown out the idea of like, oh, there's no way Cooler and Angel will be on the same team. They hate each other, no way. But I kind of feel like it's happened before, you know, characters that hate each other end up being on the same team at some point. I think even in this game, there's an example of that with Kyo and Iori on the same team. So I don't think it's that ludicrous of an idea. And I think it would actually be quite interesting and quite funny to see kind of K-Dash try to be the middleman, try to be the mediator between these two other people that just hate each other so much. Because you just know it's a role that K-Dash would just completely hate. And I kind of want to see that. I kind of want to like, you know, I think that'd be funny. I think it'd be a nice break from just the usual, you know, K-Dash, Cooler, Maxima that we've had for so long now. Again, I'm nothing against Maxima. He's not my favourite character. I don't hate him. He's just kind of there for me. But I think it would be an interesting change. And yes, that's kind of my bet. I think it's going to be K-Dash, Cooler, Angel. But if it's not Angel, then it'll just be K-Dash, Maxima, and then Cooler. You know, the usual. Now we move on to the Ashe team, and I think this team has the potential to be quite interesting, even if some of the options might be a bit safe. So right off the bat, you just know Elizabeth is going to be in this team. It makes too much sense. She's very closely linked with Ashe. She was Ashe's rival in the Ashe saga, but even then, they didn't really hate each other like other rivals. Elizabeth was Ashe's rival because she cared so much about him, and it's that thing where it's like, I think out of any rival, you know, hero-rival duo out of the entire KOF series, I think these two are the ones that were the most likely to ever actually team up naturally, like once their kind of issues were solved. So it just makes sense to me. I really would be floored if Elizabeth wasn't in this game and if she wasn't on the Ashe team, because like I said, it just makes too much sense, you know. Like I really can't see an alternative universe where she isn't in this team. It just makes too much sense. As for the other pick, I really was back and forth on this, and I have been back and forth on this for a while, because as I mentioned with Kukri, I really thought Kukri was going to be the third member of this team, because it just made sense with the ending, and it seemed obvious. But now with the links that Kukri seems to have with Dolores, now obviously he's out of this team equation, he's with the rival team now, and now I'm kind of like, well, there's a gap. And I'm thinking of Ashe Saga characters, and originally I thought Duo Lon probably made the best sense because he was close with Ashe, and he's close with Elizabeth, so there was history there with both characters. And then I kind of thought about it, and there was actually a quote from Oda in a recent interview. I believe the interview was with Famitsu, but it was an interview, and he said he was asked about the roster, how the rest of the roster is going to go, and Oda said something along the lines of, there's going to be 2 more surprises, and he didn't really clarify this. Well, the only thing he really said after that was maybe, as in kind of like a laughing kind of like, you know, I hope they're surprises. I think quite a lot of people interpreted this as in they're surprises, but they're also kind of, some people may have already guessed them, or some people might have already assumed them to be in the game. And I think a lot of people thought that by surprises, he meant characters that weren't in 14, basically. So with that, you can kind of go, okay, so there's going to be 2 characters left that weren't in 14, and in my opinion I think one is going to be Elizabeth, and I think she's the reason he said maybe, because she, like I said earlier, you know, she's pretty obvious, she's a pretty safe bet, she's close with Ashe. I think a lot of people expect Elizabeth, so then that leaves the other one, and I'll get to who I think the other one is later. Who's going to be the third pick then? Because if Elizabeth is one surprise, and the other surprise I assume is going to be on the other team, then who's going to fill that last spot? And I thought about it, and it kind of like hit me, like, oh, that makes so much sense now, why didn't I think about that? And it's Oswald, because why wouldn't it be Oswald? He has a model in the game, like in 14, like he already exists. And I'm going to touch up on this later for the next team, but I've kind of always wondered why they picked the DLC characters they did for KOF 14. Because they were popular characters, they were liked characters that people wanted back, especially Oswald. A lot of people wanted Oswald. But when you kind of think of DLC, you think of like, you know, big characters that people really, really want back, that people would absolutely pay money for. And when I think of KOF characters like that as DLC, I think Shingo, who wasn't DLC in 14. I think Yamazaki, who was DLC in 14, and Blue Mary and Vanessa, they were DLC. And I think of other characters like Ash, who wasn't DLC for 14, but is now back in 15. And then I think of like the characters they did pick. And like I said, you know, like Yamazaki, Vanessa, Blue Mary, they made sense. They're popular characters. They made sense for DLC. But then you had characters like Whip and Haida and Oswald, characters who were popular. Don't get me wrong. I like all three of those characters. But I wouldn't really say that they were DLC worthy, you know. I think a lot of those would be great for a base roster, but for characters where it's like, I feel like people would have rather wanted other characters before them. That's just my interpretation. So it kind of got me wondering, like, why would they make those characters for 14 if they weren't really characters people were dying to have come back? And it kind of hit me like, oh, maybe they were making these characters for 14 so that they could later use them for 15, because that's what's happening. So much of 14 is being carried over in 15. Obviously it's being touched up and it looks better now, but like, characters have the same designs, characters have the same super moves, they have the same animations, the same, you know, the gameplay is similarly to 14. The DLC characters that were in 14, quite a lot of them are in 15 now, and it kind of like, it makes sense, like, make these characters for 14, sell them as DLC, but you're actually using them, you're intending them to be in 15. If that makes sense. I don't know if I'm really getting that across properly, but it's kind of like making the characters for 14 to get ready for 15. Kind of like make them early, so to speak. I don't know, that's kind of my like little, you know, tinfoil hat theory about it. I think Oswald is one of those characters. I think he's a character that was planned for 15, like they wanted him in 15, but they thought, you know what, we can sell this guy as DLC. You know, he's popular enough, we can sell him as DLC. He's not exactly like uber popular, but we can put him in 14, have people excited for that, and then bring him back for 15, and have people also excited for that. And I think that's what they've done with Oswald, and I think that's what they're going to do with Oswald. So I expect the Ash team to be Ash, Elizabeth, Oswald. Now the only thing that I kind of am mixed on with Oswald being in that team is that he's obviously has ties with Ash, but he doesn't have ties with Elizabeth. And even then, his ties with Ash are very, very thin. Like, if I had to pick any character from the Ash saga that was in the hero team at one point, it would not have been Oswald. It would have been Duolon or Shenwu, or even Adelheid, you know, characters that were very important in that game. Oswald, he was only in 11, and he was pretty much just a mercenary, and then he kind of, you know, Ash pitted him against Shenwu, and then Shenwu supposedly won that fight, and then that was kind of it, and then Oswald was gone, and until he suddenly turned up in 14, and was like, oh, I don't need dragon pills anymore, I guess I'm not dying now, lol. And it was kind of like, that was it, and it was just weird. So, to me it makes sense that kind of like they were building up to his role in 15, I don't know, I think it's interesting, I don't know how they're going to do it, but that's where I think that team's going to go. Maybe I'm wrong, who knows. Maybe the other surprise that Oda was talking about is in this team as well. Maybe Elizabeth isn't the surprise, you know? We'll find out soon, I guess. And now we get to the final team, and this is the mystery team, the team we know nothing about. SNK chose to leave the bottom team completely blank, which was a good move on their part because it invited a lot of discussion. And this is easily the most speculated team. This is the one I've seen the most discussion about online. It feels like every day I go online, I see people talking about who this team's going to be, who's this character going to be with, how's this team going to be made up, who's going to be, here's my theory about who it is. And I have my theory, and before I get into that, I'll talk about who I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be Kim. I don't think it's going to be a boss team. I don't think it's going to be a Sam Show team. I don't think it's going to be Jeff Bogart or Guy Dell or all these other characters that are dead, that are now back. I don't think it's going to be any of them. And I'll go into why I think that in a minute, because of the evidence that I think exists that supports the team that I think is going to take that last spot. But I think the only one that's really credible that could be that last team is the Kim team, because it's Kim, you know, he's never missed a game. And, you know, it's one of those things with missing games with KOF where it's not that big of a shock, you know, other characters have missed games before, you know, you had Mai and Leona, they missed a game each, Mai missed 2, and it's like, they are far more popular characters than Kim, in my opinion, and they both missed a game or 2. K-Dash wasn't in KOF 12, same with Maxima. I know KOF 12 is a weird game, but it's still notable that they would sell a game without K-Dash in it. That's a pretty big deal, and it's like if they can do that, then they can have Kim miss a game. I mean, even then, I don't think he's going to miss the game. I think he's DLC. My theory, again, putting the tinfoil hat on, is I think with the game's delay, I think certain teams got pushed back into DLC. You know, SK didn't have the time, didn't have whatever, you know, like whatever the reason is, whether it was COVID or money related, they just didn't have the resources to get this team done in time, or else the game would have been pushed back further. So they put this team back, and I think they're going to be DLC. I think Kim's going to be either the first or second team from the DLC. I also think the beach stage, because the beach stage is the Sunset Beach stage is the one thing that I think kind of leans towards them being in, because who's going to, you know, who's going to take that stage, because nobody else really fits that stage. I do think that is the Kim team stage, but I think they got pushed back. I really do. I think because we've not seen the beach stage since Blue Mary's trailer, where it's like we've seen every other stage since, and we know the trailers were uploaded in advance because Luong's trailer. I think people found out that trailer got uploaded like a week or two before it actually went live. So these trailers have been put up, like they're ready in advance. So I don't think it's completely like ludicrous to think that like, oh, you know, Blue Mary's trailer was made before the delay and she had the Sunset Southtown Beach stage as the Kim team stage. And then the delay happened and they were like, oh, you know, push it back, so we'll move the beach stage out. I don't know, it's my theory. I could be completely wrong. I could be talking complete shit right now. Who knows? We'll find out soon, I guess. But I don't think it's going to be the Kim team. I just don't think there's enough evidence pointing towards it. Like, the beach is a strong sign, but I mean, we've not seen it since. I mean, if it turns up in a trailer next week, then I'll gladly, you know, take the L on that one. But I don't know, I just don't see it happening. So who do I think it's going to be then? If you've been keeping up with the discussion online, if you've been on the KOF subreddit, if you've been looking through KOF Twitter, you'll probably have seen this team mentioned quite a lot. It's a very popular theory at the moment. It's a very, I think it's probably the most popular theory going at the moment for this team, because it kind of, you know, it just makes sense. I'd still have my own doubts about it. I really want it to happen. I don't know if it will happen, but basically, I think regardless of who else is in the team, I think the team's absolutely high turns. There's just so much evidence pointing towards it. I personally made a Reddit post the other week talking about Haidern and how, like, it's actually a big deal that he's back, because Haidern is a character where, like, he's not in KOF a lot. And in like a playable sense, I mean, like, he's in the story a lot because he's a character that doesn't really need to fight that much, because he has so many agents and soldiers, you know, at his command. He never really needed to get in, and he only ever really got in the ring when it was necessary. He got in the ring when it was personal, and that kind of ties into the later one, the third member of this team, which again, if you've kept up with the theories, you'll know who I'm talking about, but I'll keep it a surprise for those that don't. So yeah, I absolutely think it's Haidern, and the two main reasons I think this is because A, he's on the box art, he's on the cover art of the game, and he's a pretty prominent figure on that box art. He's above K-Dash and Ash. He's above those two characters, and to me, when you make artwork like this, when you place these characters in the positions they're in, it's done with detail. You do it knowing how you want it to look. You know what message you want to give to the people that look at it. And when I look at that box art, the message I get is that Haidern is a very important character in this game, and that he's more important than Ash and K-Dash. And I think it would be baffling, utterly baffling, to have Haidern that prominent on the box art above K-Dash and Ash, and have him be their second or third member of their teams. It makes zero sense. Like, it annoys me so much when I see people say, oh, I think he's going to be with Ash, I think he's going to be with K-Dash, because it makes no sense. Like, yes, he's had links with K-Dash in the past. Yes, the Ikari Warriors are close with K-Dash. Yes, he was investigating Ash at the end of KOF 13. That's not... You don't make teams based on that. You know, like... yeah, that was just a personal, like, rage tangent, I guess, but it really does annoy me when people just go, oh, I think he'll be with this character. And it's like, you've not put any thought into this. You've not put any thought into this other than, oh, I want this to happen, so I think this is going to happen. It's like, no, those aren't two things that were, you know, like... So yeah, sorry, tangent aside, I don't think he's with K-Dash or Ash. I think he's on his own team. Now, who's going to be on that team? Oh wait, no, I didn't even get into the second reason why. I said this in a previous video, but if you look at the trailer from Gamescom, and if you pause at a certain moment when they're going through the jukebox, you see the list of themes, the team themes for KOF 15, and you see the usual ones. You see, you know, Under the Control Of, which is the hero theme. You see It's Our Generation, Time for Evolution, which is the Isla team theme. And there's one that's called Liberty, and that's pretty obvious. To me, that's obviously a term that is related to Haiden, or it's a term that can be related to Haiden. I've heard people say that it could mean Kim. I think that's laughable, really, because if Kim is going to have a theme name that's just one word, it would be Justice. Why would people be like, oh, Liberty and Justice? No. Liberty and justice aren't synonyms. They're different words, belong in the same general area, but they're not. You can't just use liberty instead of justice. If you want to talk about justice, you use the word justice. When you want to talk about liberty, you use liberty. They're not the same word. They're not similar. So, liberty, I think, is a term that is related to Haiden. So that's the two main reasons that I think. A distant third is that in Haiden's trailer, Blue Mary says that it's a surprise to see him on the front lines. It's rare for Haiden to get involved, which is true, because he was only in 94, 95, and 2001. 14 doesn't count because the DLC characters in 14 weren't canon because they didn't belong in a team, so don't come at me with that shit. 14 didn't count. So yeah, Haiden being in there is a big deal. I don't see him being a second or third for somebody else. I just don't. So yeah, so who's Haiden gonna be with? That's the big question. And I feel like you can go in a few directions, but ultimately the one that makes sense is it has to be Whip. I don't really see how it could be anybody else but Whip, because if Haiden's going to be on his own team and we already have a team with Leona, Ralph and Clark, it makes sense that Whip would be in there as well. It'd be nice to have all the Ikaris in the game. We haven't had all the Ikaris in a game since technically 14, but in a canon sense, we haven't had any of the Ikaris in one game since 2001. So it'd be nice to have them all back in there. But alternatives, again, I can't really think of who else it could be other than Whip. It just makes too much sense. Like, why would Haiden go into a tournament and not bring Whip? So yeah, I think Whip's a pretty safe bet. I like Whip a lot. She's very much one of my favourite KOF characters. We'll be very excited to see her back. And then we get to the third character, and now this is the one that I think a lot of people are hoping for, and I'm hoping for it a lot, because it's a character I like a lot that I really feel like never really got the respect they deserved because of reasons outside of SNK's control, and that character is Adelheid Bernstein. And Adelheid Bernstein, for those that don't know, is the son of Rugal Bernstein, who was the boss of KOF 94 and 95. Rugal's a very popular character. Rugal also died. He's been dead for a while. And in KOF 2003, we are introduced to Adelheid and Rose Bernstein, the children of Rugal. And Adelheid is very much the opposite of Rugal. He's a very kind man, compassionate, has a good sense of honor. And it's long established, it's been established since 2003, that Haiden and Adelheid are very close to each other, which is interesting because Rugal was actually the one that killed Haiden's family. If you don't know the backstory, basically years before KOF 94, a young Haiden and a young Rugal clashed. Rugal beat Haiden, and then because Rugal was young and full of power and all the powers in his head, he killed Haiden's family. So Haiden entered KOF 94 and 95 to kill Rugal, to make sure Rugal was stopped and defeated. And then he sat out KOF for years until 2001. And he only joined KOF 2001 because Whip was with K-Dash. So Haiden only really joins tournaments when he absolutely has to. And it's a big deal, and and as I said, it's been long established that Adelheid and Haiden have a very strong relationship. They're very close to each other. Haiden is very much a mentor to Adelheid, and it's a very cool relationship, and I think it really works well that Haiden, kind of takes the son of his family's killer under his wing and kind of does right by him. I think that's a very cool storyline. And now with everybody coming back from the dead, surely Rugal's going to come back. I personally feel like Rugal's going to be DLC because, that would sell like hotcakes. Rugal as DLC would be such a smart business decision because he's a very insanely popular character. People have wanted him back for years now. And now they have a reason to. And I think that confrontation, Rugal meeting Adelheid and Haiden working together, I think it'll be really cool. I really, really want this team to happen. There's no real proof that says that Adelheid is going to be with Haiden. It's just theory crafting and a lot of people's hopes and wishes, mine included. But I really do think that would be such a cool team, and I really, really hope it happens. But that's my theory, yeah. I think that last team is Haiden, Whip, Adelheid. It could go in any other direction. People have been saying they want a Masters team of Haiden, Takuma, and Saishu. Yes, it's a cool team, but to me, it's not canon, it never happened. It's not a real team. It was in 98 and 2002 because it needed to happen, because there was nowhere else for those characters to go, because the other teams they could have got in were already filled up. Yeah, I don't know, I get where people come from with that team. I would much rather have Haiden, Whip, Adelheid, because that's a team with story, with lore that's been building since 2003, nearly 20 years now. And I would much rather have that than a team that was just, you know, from a dream match game. That's my personal opinion. So yeah, that's my bet for the remaining KOF15 roster. 6 characters, only 6 characters left, 7 if you count Dolores, but you know, she's pretty much already confirmed, so there's no real need to include her. 6 mystery characters, those are my bet. To recap, Kula, Angel, Elizabeth, Oswald, Whip, and Adelheid are my bet. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what teams you want, what characters you want. Do you think I'm right? Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think other characters make more sense? Do you think other people are more likely to make it? I'm very interested in hearing what you guys think, as always. I've noticed there's a lot of KOF content on this channel lately. I guess it's just kind of how my interests have been going. I've kind of been moving a bit away from the What Happened Ins because I don't know, they just take a lot of time, and I do enjoy doing them, but I am kind of worried I'm going through them too quick, so I'm probably not going to do them as much anymore. But of course I'm going to have to think about other stuff I'm going to do, and you know, I enjoy doing videos like this where I kind of just sit down, I just talk about my theories, what I want from the game, stuff like that. So I'm much more interested in doing kind of more videos like this, more discussion, speculation videos. I have been keeping consistent, at least. I've been doing the visual versions of the team stories every other week. I've been enjoying them, they're quite fun, they're doing quite well as well in terms of views and all that, which is, you know, always great to see. I'm glad people are liking them. So yeah, that's kind of it. That's all I really wanted to talk about. Just a video today. I was going to say quick video, but it's not quick. It's never quick when I do these types of things, but I appreciate anybody who stays this long to hear the whole thing out. It really means a lot to me. So yeah, I want to go. I've been talking for far too long. Thank you for all the support as always. Who knows? Hopefully I'm right. I hope I'm right, but we'll see how it goes. It's always, like I said, it's always fun to see where these things go. Even if I'm wrong, I'm sure SNK will surprise us and please us in some other ways. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you guys. I'll see you later.
We await your return, warrior.